Welcome everyone to the Blacklist Games Showcase 2021. I'm Scottie and I am joined by the Sadler brothers. How's it going, guys?
Great. Hey, Scotty, how's it going?
Pretty good, pretty good. Happy to be here. Happy to have you guys on with me. We are here today to announce some cool new stuff, share some news, and give away some games. So that's pretty exciting. So anyone who watches the premiere of this, or at least watches within the first 48 hours of the premiere of this, will have a chance to send us some emails with specific instructions, of course, that we'll provide throughout the show to try to win some games. So I guess the first thing we can do is share some news. The most exciting of them all being that our web store is now live, or at least it should be as of the airing of this video. If you go to blacklistgamesllc.com like right now and it's not up yet, give us a few. We're probably just working out a few things in the background, making sure we can flip the switch. But once it is live, you'll find some games that you've been trying to get for a little while. It is not our entire catalog just yet, but as products become available, we will add them, and then you'll be able to get those. And of course, we'll be posting news on our channels and our website when we do add new stuff to the store, so you're aware. All right, so now the next piece of news coming along with the web store being available is that Contra and Buddy Cop pre-orders for the next printings will be available as well. So if you've been waiting for those, we've been talking about them for a while, you'll be able to just put a pre-order in and await your copies. Now, actually, we're so excited about the web store being up that, you know what, let's take care of two of our giveaways for the day right now. We are going to be giving away copies of Alter Quest and Brook City. Specifically, Alter Quest will come with its stretch goals, and Brook City will come with its stretch goals and the Keys to the Kingdom expansion. So, if you are wanting to win one of those, or at least try to win one of those, what you can do is email us at blggiveaways@outlook.com. I'll put that on the screen right now. And for Alter Quest, all you need to do is make sure your email has the subject line Runa. That's Rhuna. That is the name of the world in the Alter Quest game. So just send us an email with that subject line, and you'll be in the draw. And for Brook City, the subject line has to be Badge, BADGE. So yeah, we'll be waiting for the first 48 hours after the premiere of this video, and then once that's done, we'll be going through the emails, and we'll be picking one of each at random, and we'll contact you if you are the lucky winner. Okay, so with that all out of the way, let's talk about our first exciting announcement of the showcase. So we're here to offer a sneak peek of an upcoming Blacklist Games title. It should be fairly exciting for a lot of new and returning Blacklist Games fans. Now, the Sadlers here, they are VPs of product development, but they're also game designers, I hear. Is that
Known
true?
to tinker.
Oh,
Sweet. Yeah. Yeah. So people who might have followed us in our game design career might be familiar with some of the games we've designed before we started working on Blacklist Games. And one of the first ones we designed together as freelancers was Warhammer Quest: The Adventure card game.
Our first published design together with our name. Well, you had your name on the Descent box.
This was our first together
Sadler Brothers
as a
game.
design team.
Very exciting game.
And people, it was pretty well received. People liked it. The biggest complaint was the lack of expansions, which is
It's more than a complaint. It's a tragedy. We weren't head honchos at Fantasy Flight Games, so we couldn't call the shots.
we were freelance. So.
Yeah, and we this was when we were freelance, and also there was a licensing license tied to this, and that license was ending. We weren't aware of, so this came out at a very bad time because they couldn't put out any more content because of the brand. So that was unfortunate.
But that led to a second life of the game system when we did Heroes of Terranoth as like a follow-up with FFG. And this game we were very excited about. It was also well received. People liked it, but they were hesitant. And they were like, I want this game, but I want to make sure it's going to be supported with expansions. And sadly, it was not.
And we get asked about it a lot. And we'd like to clear the air there, because this again was a timing issue, because this was in development and being published during the acquisition period when Asmodee was acquiring FFG, and their philosophies were changing about how they handle expansions. So they always looked at the numbers and everything. So we couldn't push the expansions out for this, unfortunately. So it pretty much just became a standalone game, and that wasn't our vision going into the product line. So again, it was an unfortunate circumstance, but they were both very well received games that were very
They're
fun.
awesome games.
Yes.
I love
And
them.
after lengthy discussions about, contracts and all this stuff with FFG, we still are friends with people that work at FFG and everything. So after, a long time, we finally got to a point where we are able to do something else with the game. And that is what we are excited to announce today.
Ooh.
Is we are designing a new implementation of this system in a game that we're calling Heroes of Aetha.
Yes, and on
Yeah,
screen
so-
right now, I'm showing the awesome reveal image.
It's not a heavy metal album. It should be, but
It's like so close. It's so close.
Someday inspire a cool heavy metal album.
And this might not be the official cover artwork. This is just our promotional art for the game because
This is actually art that we had for a spot in the Lasting Tales book because
yes, Aetha is our fantasy world that we're building with Lasting Tales, and it's something we've been working on a lot behind the scenes, and it started with our fantasy series miniatures line. So we were kind of cohesively building a world that was more epic fantasy, traditional like Dungeon and Dragon style fantasy that we kind of grew up with. So the Aetha world building began a while ago, but we wanted to push even further with this game. So this game is going to be set in Aetha. It's going to be familiar to anybody who's seen Lasting Tales or seen our Fantasy Series 1 miniatures, which we have an exciting additional announcement for this for this game line that we'll touch on later.
yeah. So while this game is very much a new implementation of the system that several people are familiar with Warhammer Quest the Adventure card game and Heroes of Terranoth, we have been, as designers do, we've been improving things we think could be improved a little bit and tweaking things a little bit. And one of the cool things about the game is there's more of a tactile positioning element in the game.
Spatial element.
Yes, with tokens for where your character
That's
goes,
cool.
which card you're at, and everything, which lets players use miniatures if they want. And obviously, we have lots of miniatures in this Fantasy Series 1, Fantasy Series 2 line to accommodate players who would like to do that.
Yeah, and we can get more into that when we talk about the specifics of how this game is played. But we also just want to touch on that this game is going to be much more in line with our original vision, because when we set out to do the Warhammer Quest Adventure card game, we had certain constraints, and we had from both IP related things because of the Warhammer IP. We had to keep it in dungeons, and we couldn't go exploring the above ground and do higher level adventures. So a lot of what we're doing with the Heroes of Aetha is much more what we wanted to originally. So anybody who's liked these systems, the Warhammer Quest or Heroes of Terranoth, will find a lot of similarities, but much more in line with what we originally wanted to do with our adventure card game system.
I guess, yeah, so you touched upon a little bit like what was new in Heroes of Aetha when compared to Heroes of Terranoth or Warhammer Quest Adventure card game. So the spatial elements using the minis. Is there anything else from either of those two previous games that you'll either be bringing back for this game or maybe like remixing or something like that?
So I think the best way to look at it is we'll lay out about 4 broad points. We have the actions, how actions are handled, action cards, activation cards. That concept is definitely going to be there. So anyone familiar with these two games will know what to expect with Heroes of Aetha. Campaign play, definitely wanted to make that a priority, because even though Warhammer Quest featured,
People liked it in Warhammer Quest, the Adventure card game, and it was kind of modified, taken out from Heroes of Terranoth, which a lot of people weren't thrilled about. Some people liked the idea of the one-off, but we like the idea of both. We want to give people the option for both.
Yeah, so that's the other point is we have we have the action cards, the campaign, but also I'm going to dump in modularity with the solo, with the one-off play, because that allows for a lot more replayability, because you can create your own adventures, take different elements and socket them together. And then the 4th point, which I think is the most exciting, is the expandability, which kind of goes in with the modularity. We'll kind of touch on both of those.
And so, as you mentioned, the idea of action cards, that's kind of a fundamental part of the game. Is you have 4 of these actions, and you're playing them you make a decision of which one you want to play in what order, and if you have none, you have to refresh them because once you play them, they're exhausted, and your options are slowly getting smaller. We actually have it in this game where it's more of a hand of cards and you're playing them down, so what's in your hand is being slowly dwindled down, and so you have to do something to refresh them.
Which again was the original vision when we first designed Warhammer Quest. It was a hand of cards, kind of like the game that was somewhat inspired by was Death Angel, Space Hulk Death Angel. Mm-hmm. I always liked how you had a hand of cards and you played one. It's more visceral, it's more tactile. Here's my options.
And it's also easier to read your card when you exhaust it. You can still read it because
and that's an important design space mechanic too, because Adam had a cool concept. When you play the card, some cards will have passive effects that while they're played, you can't do that action anymore, but you might have a passive effect that benefits everybody. But cards can also be exhausted, flipped face down, which means they have no effect. You just lost that card. You can't use it right now. So that's a really cool aspect of the design space, the decision matrix you have in the game. A lot of things we can play with. So action cards are there, but they're just improved, I think, and we just did a lot more with them to add modularity and add more customization to what kind of heroes you want to play.
Yeah, and we won't get into it now, but we also have ways of adding other cards to your hand, so you have more options in your hand, but they're not like recyclable actions. They're more like one-off, ability cards or things you might acquire during the campaign,
or things that have a cost to play. Yeah. They're more expensive to play.
We won't get into that just yet.
Yeah, we'll save that. But we will go into a little bit about how the modularity works in the game, because I'm really psyched about this. One of the coolest aspects that I wanted to improve on with Warhammer Quest and Heroes of Terranoth is we had a lot of different enemies, you had a lot of different like bosses and quests to go on, but they were a little more linear in these two games. And for Heroes of Aether, we wanted to make it more of a sandbox experience. There's going to be campaign play that kind of will lay it out more for you so you can play through that. But if you want to just mix and match stuff and make it your own, it's designed to do that. So you'll have environments which kind of dictate what locations you'll have in play, and locations will be a little bigger sized card, and minions will try to take over locations, and most of your quests will require you to move from location to location to solve different problems. But you have those different environments. There's 3 in the game, which are dungeons, settlements, and wilderness, which is kind of a mirror of our Lasting Tales.
Was going to say,
yeah. People who have been following Lasting Tales, designed by Mark Latham, will notice some similarities that we're bringing over. We kind of want to have the same themes going into this game as well, so people that play Lasting Tales can easily transition to this game and vice versa.
Yep, and on the same modularity note, heroes are handled this is a pretty cool way to handle heroes. Adam had this concept where all the heroes are just cards. You have a card for all the heroes you want to play as, but all the heroes fall into classes like archetypes. So you have here's your deck of ranger heroes you can play. So you have like a halfling ranger, a human ranger, whatever they are, and then you have wizards and all that. But then you have the action cards you choose are based on those classes, which is somewhat similar to how Heroes of Terranoth worked, but in this, those classes will have upgrade cards as well, so you can level up your character in that class as you're playing a campaign,
and not just actions, other things.
Yes, other abilities and stuff. So a lot of cool things for campaign play, which we won't touch on too much because a lot of that is stuff we want to reveal as we go forward. Because campaign play is very important to the game, and it's an important philosophy behind how we're approaching this product versus the other two. Because even Warhammer Quest, that had campaign play, but it was a linear experience. We wanted ours to be more organic and have some customization options in there.
Oh, so are you saying that based on like what you do in the game, it might lead you to different, missions?
Yes.
Or okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, because you'll have different ways to take on whoever your main big boss is for the game, the big villain you're trying to face. What you do in each game will kind of determine how they upgrade their play area, and then how you upgrade your deck, and how his minions will upgrade, or what global effects might come into play on the quest as you go. So you'll have lasting effects from the previous game, but we still want to keep it into a bite-sized campaign experience. So we're aiming for that 5 quest sweet spot where you play a series of 5 quests and you get to the finale and that's your campaign, because we want to encourage people to play multiple different campaigns as opposed to playing just one overarching campaign.
Yeah, sometimes if it's too long, you're kind of discouraged right on the onset. You're just like, oh man, I got to get through 20 different games before I can switch characters or God knows what. So yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, and this is because the philosophy behind that design and the modularity and the expandability is because this is one that we want to be able to expand and get it all the content it deserves, especially because we're aiming this for a crowdfunding project. We hope that we get lots of stretch goals and give a lot of people lots of options, but you want to have, you know, the ability to try out those different combinations and options. So we don't want to have like just one big long sprawling campaign. We want to have multiple campaigns, different stories you can play out and everything. So
And
modularity is key.
maybe even an expansion right off the bat, just to show that we're serious.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just to give you
I
a
think
taste.
fans of either of the previous games have been dying for the word expansion to be part of the product
Right.
line. So yes, I think we're going to make that a priority as well.
One thing I wanted to mention when we talked about hero upgrade cards is something to think about is that we want things like the wizard, for example. If you're playing a wizard, we want you to feel like a wizard. So you have all these actions, but we also want to give you spells you can earn. So like there are cards in the wizard deck that are spells that can go into your hand, and they're like, you know, one use per quest type thing. Maybe you can recharge them in certain ways, but they're harder to get back than actions. So it's kind of along the lines of what we're talking about with more types of cards in your hand besides just the actions.
Yeah, and the way we can be more flexible with that is because these games had very strict AI systems, which we want to maintain because we want to make sure that there's not too much overhead with how you're activating the enemies and everything. But in this game specifically, there's this system that's we call the peril system. So you'll be acquiring peril based on what you do in the game, and you'll also gain peril just in general, just because it's something that constantly accumulates.
It's kind of like threat.
Yeah, essentially. But that's what's going to trigger villain activations. So the villain is going to respond more frequently if you keep doing things that cause peril. So a lot of like things Adam was talking about, if you're like setting off big explosions with spells and stuff, it's going to attract more peril. So we'll have this like, you know, push and pull aspect to the game, but all these different aspects just add to the design space and the flexibility of what we can do with cool player abilities and cool enemies and just a lot of variety with content.
All right, so one thing I want to go back to really quick, because we sort of touched upon it, but it's very interesting to me as a player of Heroes of Terranoth and Warhammer Quest. So in those games, you used to essentially, the whole party used to be at one location, and you used to have to, you know, advance it so that you could eventually leave the location behind to go towards a new location. But you said here that there's spatial elements and multiple locations. So is there any way you guys can maybe give us a bit more about how that works with regards to multiple players and, you know, their location, their positioning at these locations?
Sure. As Brady mentioned, we're going to have these little, you know, oversized location cards to show. You can actually will have a token to represent your character class. You know, there's going to be like, here's a wizard token or a cleric token. So this is my character's here. And of course, if you have the miniatures, you can just swap it out for your specific character. So you have your miniature on the card.
And same on the enemy side, we'll have classes of minions. So you have your like scheming minions, you have your brute minions, and they'll have color-coded tokens, which could be swapped out for miniatures with base rings if you have those miniatures, or if you know from any collection you have.
Right. And so that I guess a good way to think about it is that people who've played games like card games like Arkham Horror, the LCG, where you're actually moving around on cards. It's kind of, you know, similar to that, where the card is basically shows what location you're at, and the enemies, you know, in games like in Warhammer Quest and Heroes of Terranoth, the enemies were either engaged with you or they're in the shadows, lurking in the shadows. We have them lurking in locations, so enemies can be scattered on all locations, and you don't want them to overflow because bad things can happen. So you want to move around and make sure you don't have too many minions piling up. But the ones that are engaged with you, they're engaged with you and they stay with you. So if I want to go help, you know, Brady's character and he's at a different location, I have to actually move over there to, you know, unless I have, you know, a spell or a cool bow that can shoot long range. It opens up the door to lots of design space where positioning matters more. And it just feels more immersive. It's something that I've always kind of wanted to do with Warhammer Quest, the adventure card game, is having more of a positional element to it. The engagement area definitely gave that, you know, a little taste of that, but I think this makes it even more impactful.
Yeah, and like most of the stuff we've added to the game, we just want to keep adding design space. We want to add lots of pockets of places where abilities can trigger, and just add for more flexible content, more modular content, and just keeps the game fresh and opens the door for lots of expansions.
Right. Oh, that's exciting. The word expansion, I think, is just constantly exciting. You're talking about this system.
Yeah, we gotta hammer that.
Yeah,
out.
and one thing we want to overemphasize with this is the reason we look at expansions is because we're basing this in a world that we're investing a lot of time into. A lot of our assets are going into building this world out because I mean, not only was our fantasy series miniatures line very successful, and the follow up was just as successful or more successful.
More.
Yeah, more successful. I losing
little
track.
bit, yeah.
Yeah, and then Lasting Tales we're super excited about, and we're editing the book right now. But during this process, I brought some show and tell. I'm actually wrapping up my first novel based in this world. This is the draft. I had to print it very small to save some paper because it's 110,000 words, and I don't want to waste too many trees by just doing my editing process. But yeah, I've been working a lot with Mark on the thematics of Aetha and the Lasting Tales book. But after writing this book, I'm just 100% dedicated to building this world out more, and this game is a great vehicle to do that. So we want to keep building the world out, add some immersive content for players to get into, but then also have a really cool, fun, engaging game they can get into and use their awesome miniatures for. And who knows, maybe this will be available down the line. We'll see.
But most of all, we wanted to take control of this system. We've
Yes.
always loved this system, and we always feel bad when people ask us, if we're going to do something with it. Yes, we're going to do something with it.
There's a lot of fans been asking, like on my Twitter feed and stuff, whenever I post pictures of me looking at these rule books, what's going on with this game? This is what's going on with the game. We've been working on it for a while behind the scenes, but we're super excited to finally be bringing it, and we can't wait for the campaign.
Yeah. Those are some highly rated games, and I think every time your names are brought up, people are just like, so what's going on with this game? And I'm glad that, yes, like you said, we can finally talk about it. And I guess so with all the extra lore being developed for this world, that means that Heroes of Aetha will probably have some nice rich narrative, I guess, to accompany the campaign and all that.
Yes, yeah, we're hoping to have. We don't want to have it. We want to have enough narrative stuff outside of the game where people who love the story can go read it and not have to be forced to read it to understand the game. But there is going to be enough of those nuggets in the game because some people have different preferences. I personally don't love to read a bunch of narrative when I'm playing a game, but I would love the idea of like reading something that's like a companion piece to the game. But we'll try to do a kind of happy medium and
if the demand is there, and if Brady can finish his rewrites in time, maybe we would offer the book as part of the crowdfunding campaign. Who knows? I mean, that's that.
Yeah, let us know. Let us know if that interests you, and we'll work hard to make that happen.
Well, as you said, I guess to explain to everyone at home who might have not understood, it will be coming. Heroes of Aetha will be coming to a crowdfunding platform next year. We're not sure exactly when, but make sure to keep following us on our social media or at blacklistgamesllc.com so that you are the first to know once we actually announce some more news. Guys, I guess before we wrap this little panel up here, is there anything in particular regarding the design of Heroes of Aetha that you guys want to just kind of repeat, like that you were really proud of, a specific aspect perhaps or something like that you wanted to drive home?
Modularity, like easy setup, modularity, not sorting all these cards and going through specific setups, because a lot of these games had that in behind it. Modularity, quick setup, play, that's what I'm going for.
Yeah,
So-
that's something we didn't mention, is that one of the things we've always wanted to fix about the game was the setup. We didn't like the specific, shuffling of, finding specific cards, shuffling them together, and then it setup took too long. So that one thing we want to fix for sure, and I think we did a good job with it in this design. And I just also want to just hammer home that anybody who liked these games and wanted more of it, this is what you wanted. Heroes of Aetha will be exactly what you want, I think. So
Excellent. All right, well, hey guys, thanks for joining me today during the showcase and for unveiling Heroes of Aetha to the world. So, everyone at home, keep watching the showcase. We've got more to announce and more giveaways to take care of. But in the meantime, Adam, Brady, I'll catch you guys later.
yeah, thanks for having us. Appreciate it.
See you guys. Hey everyone, we are back for the BLG Showcase 2021, and I'm joined by Mitch Schroeder, and we're here to talk about Boruto Naruto Next Generations, the board game, which we revealed not too long ago. Hey Mitch, how's it going?
Good, thanks, Scotty.
Mitch, before we even get into that, you want to introduce yourself to the folks at home who might not be familiar with who you are?
Yeah, so as Scotty said, my name is Mitch Schroeder, and I've been working development at Blacklist for the last few years. So I worked on Street Masters and everything right up to Hour of Need.
And I hear you're quite a diehard Naruto fan. Is that true?
Yeah, I've been a fan of this franchise for a really long time. I think the last time we did a video, I pulled out some Boruto toys. This time I got some manga here beside me. I can't show all of it because I've got 72 volumes of Naruto manga and 12 or so volumes of Boruto. So I'm a pretty big fan, and it felt fantastic to work on this series.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, I personally have only started the whole Naruto journey after we started working on this internally. So I'm pretty much enjoying what I'm seeing so far. And so I can only imagine what it must have been like as a diehard fan of this to finally get a chance to dive into it and create a board game out of it. So speaking of the board game, I guess let's talk about Boruto Naruto Next Generations, the board game. In a nutshell, I guess, what kind of game is it, and what will you be doing in the game?
So Boruto is a 1 to 4 player cooperative game where a villain or a series of villains from the show, if you've seen the show, you're going to know all the villains that are in this game. They're attacking the village of Konoha, and it's up to the ninjas to kind of get together and stop the villain and protect the village before it's destroyed.
Awesome. Okay, and so you said 1 to 4 players. That means it's cooperative. We're playing together, but you can also play solo. Is that correct?
Yeah, so you can play solo. In this game, if you're playing solo, you're going to play as if you're playing with 2 players, like you'll play 2 different hands. I spent a lot of time, and Jeff and I guess I didn't explain that we're co-designing, or I'm co-designing this with my friend Jeff Frazier. Jeff and I went back and forth a lot over what we were going to do with the solo mode. We wanted to make a true solo mode for all those solo players out there. I know I play a lot of games by myself, so it was very important for me to have that in this game and to have it feel very natural and not like something tacked on at the end. And I came up with 5 or 6 different iterations of a solo mode. They worked mechanically, they were balanced, and they were fun, but they just didn't have the magic that really brings this game to life in a more cooperative setting. This game is very collaborative. You're building up energy together, you're using abilities together, and if you don't have other players to kind of bounce those things off of, it just loses something. So ultimately we decided we're not going to have a true solo mode in this game, and instead we're going to make it fully cooperative. 2 ninjas plus.
Right, and I can imagine in that case that it's not overly complex to play solo, even if you got two different ninjas going around, right?
Yeah, not at all. This game is very streamlined. There's not a lot of confusing rules. I mean, there's a lot of decisions to make and a lot of moving parts, but nothing's confusing, nothing's overwhelming. So trying to manage 2 or even 3 different hands isn't overwhelming at all.
Awesome. Okay, well, speaking of ninjas and everything, let's actually figure out how this game works. Well, I guess the most important thing to talk about first is the fact that there's a large cast of characters in this game, a lot of ninjas, and each player will create a deck of cards to play with, and this deck is going to be a combination of junior and senior ninjas. Is that correct?
Yeah, so there's 12 different ninjas in this game. There's 6 senior ninjas and 6 junior ninjas, and at the beginning of the game, you're going to choose 1 from each of those categories and mixing them together to create a unique deck. All the different combinations are going to play very differently, so every game is going to be kind of a new strategy and a new surprise.
All right, yeah, so that makes sense. You want to give us an idea of how the game round works? I guess walk us through that.
All right, so in Boruto, there are no rounds per se. It's just heroes taking a turn, followed by another hero taking a turn. So on a hero turn, they're going to play, the ninja or the player is going to play 2 ninja cards out of their hand. So their hand is going to be made up of 5 junior ninja cards and 2 senior ninja cards. 3 of those junior ninja cards have no cost. They can be played for free. So you can play 2 of those. The rest of the cards are all going to have a cost. You have to pay chakra in order to play that card and gain its abilities. The way that you do that is by spending chakra from your chakra pool, which you've built by playing previous cards. So when you play one of your free cards, You take all the actions that are on the card, and then it's going to stay on the table in your chakra pool. It doesn't get discarded. That card is now unavailable to you until it has been spent as chakra. So when you play a future card, or when another player plays a card, they can use your chakra from that chakra pool to power up their card. And when they do that, you're going to get that card back in your hand. So there's a lot of hand management here. You'll be getting rid of cards that you may need later and putting them out onto the table, and they're going to stay there until somebody, you or a teammate, can get that card back into your hand.
Oh, that's super clever. That's really cool because it's going to force you to really play strategically, where you might have to play a card that's not optimal for you right now, but one of your teammates has a card that is more expensive in terms of chakra, and they need the card you're going to play. So yeah, a lot of good table talk can occur with that system.
Yeah, and that's really why we couldn't make the true solo mode work, because of that table talk, because of really collaborating with your friends, or even if you're playing solo with two different hands, really trying to decide what you're going to do with one ninja versus the other ninja and make everything kind of come together and work strategically.
So these cards, you're playing them out, you're building up chakra, the chakra pool for the team, but these cards allow you to do a multitude of different things, right? What can you do with these cards? What will they let you accomplish?
So there's a series of different actions that you can take with each card. Some of them may allow you to move around the board. Some of them will allow you to do melee attacks against enemies in your space. Other are ranged attacks. You're throwing shuriken, you're taking, crazy chakra-powered attacks, and they can be, into nearby spaces. We had to include some ranged attacks as well.
Okay, so and therefore, so you'll be going around the village of Konoha. You'll be trying to attack the villains and or minions up close and personal, or from a distance. You can also, I guess, support your teammates with some abilities, probably.
Yeah, there are a number of abilities that ninjas have. Those are usually specific abilities for each particular ninja. Like there's generic abilities that anyone can take, like movement, attacking, and then each ninja kind of has their own specialties, things that they work on. Some of them are able to heal, some of them are able to move other ninjas around the board. So it really depends on which ninja you're playing. Well, that'll decide what your actions are going to be.
Okay, and so from what I can tell, there are dice in this game as well. So I'm guessing the cards let you roll a number of dice when you're attacking. Is that correct?
Yeah, so each time you play an attack action, whether it's melee or a ranged attack, it's going to tell you how many dice you roll, and you're going to roll those dice up. The dice have the variable sides. There's 2 misses, there's 3 hits, and then there's 1 critical hit, or a double hit on it. The dice also have defensive capabilities. So the misses when you're attacking are shields. So when you're attacked by an enemy, you roll the dice, and if you get a shield, that attack is blocked.
Right. Okay. So that makes sense. So let's see here. We've talked about the cards. We've talked about the dice. So I guess as heroes, our goal is to defeat the villain. The villain's goal. What is the villain's goal?
So the villain's goal is going to be either to destroy Konoha or to defeat any ninja. If any ninja is defeated, the game is over immediately. And Konoha, if you take a look at the board, along the left side, there is a Konoha health track. The maximum health is going to start at different places depending on what difficulty level you want to set the game at. And then each villain has a different way of harming Konoha. So that really is going to play into the strategy of how to defeat each villain, and how they're going to defeat you.
Okay, and how do you get defeated as a player?
Yeah, so each hero or each ninja does have 3 health tokens. If you're going to be attacked by minions, you're going to be attacked by villains. If ever all 3 of your health tokens are gone, the game's over.
Okay, so pro tip to everyone: if you're taking damage, make sure you heal it. All right, so we've talked about how the villains will attack you and their goals. The villains in this game evolve. Is that accurate?
Yeah, so it's very much, part of anime where the heroes defeat a villain and they think they've won. They've done this crazy cool attack, and the villain is down, and then all of a sudden he's not. He comes back and he's more powerful than ever. He's, at stage 2 or stage 3. and the villain and the heroes have to defeat him again. So we wanted that anime feel in this game. So each villain does have two different stages. At the beginning of the game, they're a little bit easier. Their actions aren't quite as powerful as they are in the second half. Once you defeat the villain the first time, you're going to flip their villain sheet over, and now they're going to come back with more health, more defense, way more difficult actions, and you got to beat them again.
So the villains themselves and their minions, they will move to places and they'll spawn in certain locations. What determines that exactly?
So, in order to randomize where a villain is or moving or how their minions are spawning, we created this location deck. So, at the end of each turn, you're just going to flip over a location deck, location card, and it's going to have two locations on it, and the villain sheet will tell you how to move or spawn. So it might say spawn a minion in location B and move the villain to location A or something along that line. You just follow. It's always very simple and straightforward. It takes half a second to actually flip that card over and do what it says. It's very quick and streamlined.
All right, well, that sounds good. Okay, so we've talked about the ninjas and the villains so much. I want to know who's in this game. So let's take a quick look. Quick look. There's a lot of people to go through. So we'll give everyone at home a taste of what everyone's abilities are, I guess. Let's start with the junior ninjas, our main cast, I suppose you could say. So starting on the left here, we have Boruto himself, our lead. So what makes him different than the rest of the junior ninjas?
So Boruto being the main character, we wanted him to be the most consistent character. So he has ways to add successes to his dice rolls when he's doing it. So he's a little bit less random. If you need 3 hits on an enemy and you only get 2 on the dice, you can add an extra hit to make that successful or to do that little bit more damage you need to defeat that enemy.
All right, sounds solid. What about Chocho?
Chocho is just a powerhouse. She doesn't have a lot of ranged attacks. She's very much melee focused, but she hits like a tank.
Well, from what I know of her, that seems accurate. What about Inojin?
Inojin is a little bit more of a support character. He's never really front and center in the anime. So we wanted to really showcase him as a support character. So he's going to be able to use his mind-body transformation jutsu to take over another character and allow them to play cards. So he gives more actions to other players.
We got Mitsuki.
So Mitsuki is another support character. Again, he's not usually front and center in the anime, but he's very flexible, and I mean that figuratively and literally. He's has this flexible Mr. Fantastic-like body. So we wanted to use that. So he's going to be moving characters, both heroes or enemies, around the board, kind of messing up their plans and setting other figures up or other heroes up for big attacks in the future.
Ooh, that sounds really cool too. Maybe I'll try him next. Then we've got Sarada.
So Sarada is our ranged attack specialist. She's all about the shuriken jutsu and the lightning shuriken jutsu. So she has all these abilities that allow her to kind of stay more central in the board and throw long range attacks everywhere.
Then we have the final one here. We have Shikadai.
So Shikadai is interesting. He has, for fans of the show, they know that he has his shadow paralysis and shadow imitation jutsus. So we really wanted to find a way to bring that to life in our game. So he has abilities where if he moves 2 spaces, he can move another figure 2 spaces. So he's kind of another support character in that way, but not so much. He has a few abilities that allow him to take front and center if he wants to.
All right, awesome. Well, let's move on to the senior cast, who fans of the series will recognize as well from the previous series, the Naruto series. So who we got here? Starting on the left, we have Naruto. What can you tell me about him?
All right, so Naruto, I mean, he's a fan favorite character, so we need to do something really special with him. We wanted him to have probably the biggest attack in the game because he's got the 9-tailed fox and he's the Hokage, so he had to do something awesome. So his one attack is the biggest attack in the game. His other card he has is all about chakras, so it doesn't have a very good attack on it. Instead, he uses the power of the nine-tailed fox to just let other people put cards from their hand directly into their chakra pool to fuel up bigger attacks later on.
Nice. Well, that's quite appropriate, I think, for Naruto. He definitely needs that big bombastic moment. Moving on, we have Hinata.
So Hinata, Naruto's wife and Boruto's mom, we needed to make sure that she was in the game and had a really important place in it. So she, being from the Hyuga clan, has the Byakugan, which is, the all-seeing eye. So she is able to see into the location deck and allow players to rearrange that. So when you're using her abilities, you can draw the top, 3 or so cards of the location deck. Pick the ones you like, leave them on top, put the other ones back a little bit lower, and kind of manipulate what the minions and the villains are going to do.
From my plays that I've had of this game, that is a very important ability to take advantage of, for sure. Moving on, we have Kakashi. I love this guy. I mean, I'm still new to this series, but this guy's pretty awesome.
Yeah, Kakashi's another fan favorite character. Everybody loves him. He was the 6th Hokage, so he's also really powerful. We wanted to make him consistent as well, kind of like Boruto, but we did that with him in that when he's attacking, he doesn't throw dice. He's just, instead of having an attack of 3 that rolls 3 dice, he just deals 3 hits. There's no chance of missing when you are Kakashi.
That sounds pretty spot on. Then we have Konohamaru.
So Konohamaru, he's the leader of Team 7. That's Boruto's team. We really wanted him to be all about allies. It just felt right for Konohamaru. He has all the summoning jutsu, where he summons toads and all this. I mean, Naruto can do that as well, but it's definitely part of what Konohamaru is doing since Naruto is his mentor. So we have him with this ally summoning technique, where he's going to be able to draw additional cards from the ally deck. I don't think we've talked about the ally deck yet. I mean, we can talk about that in a minute, but it's just extra characters with really cool and powerful abilities that you can utilize in the game, and Konohamaru is going to be manipulating that deck.
Awesome. Yeah, the allies, I guess we can touch upon them really quick. So yeah, so you have an ally deck, and at the start of the game, you're only going to have, normally anyways, 3, I believe, out in play. Is that correct?
Yeah, so there's going to be 3 available. They're all one-time use abilities. Once you use them, they're gone. Konohamaru is able to, summon more of those allies to give you some really... Those abilities are pretty powerful, so he's going to give you more really powerful abilities.
On the screen here, I'll show you a handful of the allies that are in the game, but I won't spoil everyone for you, so I'll let you discover some more on your own when you get the game. But moving on to the final 2 members of our senior cast, our senior ninjas, we have Sakura.
Yeah, so Sakura is Sarada's mom. She is the greatest, or at least one of the greatest medical ninja of all time. So she's all about healing. She's got a couple of different abilities to heal other figures, and then she also has this colossal strength. I mean, it's an ongoing joke in the Naruto and Boruto anime where Sakura gets mad and then she, destroys a building with a single punch. So we had to give her a really big attack as well.
Right. Yeah. That seems pretty on brand. And I guess lastly, but not least, is Sasuke.
Sasuke, everybody's favorite character. Like this guy, he's the reason people watch Naruto to begin with. So we had to do something really special with him. So we wanted to use his Rinnegan, which allows him to switch places with other figures. So he can move anywhere on the board as long as there's another figure in the space he's going to, and then that figure will go to his starting space.
Oh, that sounds really powerful. That sounds pretty awesome. Okay, so we've taken a look at our heroes. Let's take a look at the villains we'll be going up against as those heroes.
Yeah, so just like there's 12 different ninjas in the game, which is a lot of different characters, we also wanted to have a lot of villains. So we put 5 different missions, I guess, into the game. Some of them are 1 villain, some of them, in the top right, you can see the inner shell there. That's 3 different villains. So these missions all play very differently. So I'll start at the bottom right there with Shin Uchiha. So he's coming into Konoha with a number of clones. And, he's created these clones, and they're going to be popping up all over the village, and the ninjas are going to have to be moving around quickly to defeat them as they pop up. because if they get left alone, they're going to be the ones doing damage to Konoha. The next stage, if you go to the bottom left on the screen, we have the Otsutsuki clan, so that's Momoshiki and Kinshiki, and this is two villains, so there's no, at least on stage one, there is no minion in this stage, or in this mission. But for those of you who have seen the show or have seen the movie, you know that halfway through the battle, Momoshiki, he evolves. So that's what happens when you flip over this sheet. Kinshiki is gone. Momoshiki has grown up a little bit, and now he's going to be doing massive attacks all over Konoha, destroying the village really quickly. So you're going to want to get on that. Just above that, we have Koji Kashin. He's kind of this mysterious character who's going to be summoning various creatures, toads and whatnot, across Konoha, and players are going to have to stop those. Then if we move over to the right, we have Inner Shell. So this one is three different villains. All three of them are going to be on the board in Konoha at the same time, and they all act a little bit differently. So one thing that we haven't talked about yet is kind of how the villains actually attack or what they're doing. So after every ninja turn, there's a villain turn, and in that villain turn, the villains are going to take actions. And if you're looking at the screen right now, you're seeing the bottom left of each villain sheet. There's an actions section, and they'll take from top to bottom each of those actions. On the right side, there's also a reaction section, and you're only going to resolve that side if the villain was damaged that turn. So every time you hit the villain, they're going to come back harder at you. So in the Inner Shell, Boro and Code are going to be attacking every single turn, but if you attack any of them, Delta is then going to react and hit you pretty hard. So you really want to watch out for Delta on that one, and make sure you're in a situation where you can afford to hit the villains, because if you're wounded or if you're in any kind of trouble, she might just finish you off. Finally, we have the Vessel. So this is Kawaki and Jigen. For those of you who are watching the show, you know that Kawaki is the vessel that these other guys are trying to find. So here he's kind of partnering up with Jigen to take on the ninjas. When Kawaki is on the board, Jigen is more powerful, so you're going to want to take out Kawaki, and then that kind of weakens Jigen a little bit. But then Kawaki is going to be respawning. So it's kind of this juggling match. Like, do we take out Kawaki? Can we take out Kawaki to make Jigen easier? Or do we just go at Jigen because he's, sitting right next to me, and I may as well take a swipe at him when I can.
Wow. Okay. So, I mean, from what I can gather, that this means that all 5 villain sheets, if anything, or stages or missions, however you want to call them, they all play very differently from one another and really shake up the game. So, if you've played one, you will not be able to immediately figure out how to deal with another.
Absolutely. And the ninjas that you pick, that's gonna affect how you interact with these as well. If you have ninjas who have some healing ability, you're gonna be able to take more hits. So someone like Delta maybe isn't so scary, so you might be more worried about Boro or Code. But if you don't have any healing, and you don't have Sakura in the game or some of the other characters who heal, then all of a sudden Delta is way more scary, and you need to really pay attention to her. So the combination of ninja and villain is really important.
So yeah, I guess before we conclude our session here, one question I do have is, are there any particular elements in this game that you are really proud of in terms of just design or the way you've integrated them with other things?
Yeah, there's a few things. One is that chakra system that we've mentioned a few times, where you have a hand of 7 cards. When you play a card, it goes into your chakra pool, and it stays there until someone spends that card to get it back into your hand. Because it really does create a lot of conversation around the board, where someone on their turn may need a yellow card, a yellow chakra. I don't know if we mentioned that there's 3 different types of chakra. So there's yellow, blue, and red, and each card that you play has a specific cost. It might cost 1 yellow, or it might cost a blue and a red. So somebody on their turn, and to your left, might be, I really need a yellow in the chakra pool because I have this yellow card that's going to help us win the game. You may or may not want to play your yellow card, so you really have to talk this out. Like, okay, if I play my yellow card, it's not going to help me. Is it enough for me to do that to help you in the future? So it's a lot of conversations. The other thing that we did is we added these echoes to some cards. So an echo ability is an ability that you can play from the chakra pool. So it might be, extra hits. It might allow a ninja to move anywhere on the board. They're really variable on the kinds of things that they can do. When that card is in your hand, it does nothing. That echo ability is completely useless. But once it gets into your chakra pool, you can spend that card as an echo instead of using it as chakra and get it back into your hand and trigger that ability. So it's a really cool way to maybe store up some power. You might have a couple of cards that give extra successes on an attack. So you might put those into your chakra pool so that if somebody flubs an attack in the future, you can spend those cards to make that attack a success. But of course, you're not using that card for chakra, so it has a cost.
So I, for one, am super excited. I've played this a handful of times internally during the various stages, and it is definitely one that I cannot wait to add to my collection. So for everyone watching at home, by the time this video airs, our pre-orders should be live on our web store for Boruto. So go ahead and you can visit blacklistgamesllc.com/Boruto, and there's more information there. Also, there should be a gameplay video going up pretty much around the time this is airing or shortly afterwards, where Mitch will be playing through a game. There will also be a tabletop simulator demo that you can try out very shortly on the website, so take a look at that. We also want to give away a pre-order for this game. We're super excited about it, so I want everyone at home who's interested in getting a copy of this game or trying to win this pre-order to go to BLG Giveaways at Outlook.com. That's going to be across the screen right now. And send us an email, and the subject line needs to be Chakra. That's CHAKRA. And we will go through those, and we're going to pick a winner at random, and we'll contact you if you've won. All right, well, I guess that being said, again, thanks for joining us, Mitch, and we'll catch you next time.
Thanks so much, Scotty.
Hey everyone, we're back with Michael Kelly and Peter Goosis from One Stop Co-op Shop and MVP Board Games. How's it going, guys?
Going awesome.
It is fantastic. I'm so excited.
Well, you should be, because we are here to talk about... Actually, you know what? I'll have one of you guys announce the title of this game.
Mega Man Adventures.
That's right, folks. We are here to talk about Mega Man Adventures, designed by these fine individuals.
Yes.
All right, guys. So, for those who at home might not know who you are, could you introduce yourselves and anything you've worked on in the past?
Sure. We're probably most known for the One Stop Co-op Shop, which is 2 YouTube channels and a weekly podcast at this point. Peter and I both started the podcast, and then we also joined the YouTube channel with Collins, probably the best known person. We also have Jason Perez, Steve Kingsley, and Barrett from Meet Me at the Table are on there. So we do playthroughs and reviews of solo and cooperative games on the streaming channel and the main channel, and podcast reviews of games. And now we've designed a solo and cooperative game, but it's not our first one. What else have we designed, Peter?
Yeah, so we started out with Salvation Road from Van Ryder Games a few years back, and then followed it up pretty quickly with another game, Dark Dealings, that came out from Nevermore Games and is now with Greater Than Games. So, yep, we've got a couple of other titles out there right now, but it's been a little while, and so we're excited to get back in the design game again.
Yeah, we're doing so much content creation. We've been designing the entire time. We never stopped, but not all of them are getting published. So we're happy that this one is happening, and you all get to see it.
Yeah, you guys are definitely busy individuals. A lot of great content coming out from you guys, regardless of the format. But yeah, glad to work with you guys as well on this. And it's looking to be quite an adventure. Well, Mega Man Adventures is looking to be quite an adventure, so I'm excited to talk about it. So speaking of nice. Mega Man, I guess another big question would be, were you guys Mega Man fans prior to this? And if so, what did it feel like to work on a Mega Man game?
Yeah, I mean, I'm Peter. I had to introduce to the series, but I am a humongous Mega Man fan. That's why I kind of once I heard that Blacklist had the IP, I sought it out. Yeah, I've been playing Mega Man since I was a kid on the Nintendo Entertainment System. I've played every single main Mega Man series game. I played all the Mega Man X's. I played all the Zero games. So I'm basically obsessed with Mega Man. And Mega Man 2 is always my favorite, with maybe Mega Man 3 a close second. And
I was
the
about
fact
to
that not only
ask
we're
you.
doing a Mega Man game, yeah. So now we're not only doing a Mega Man game, but we're doing, for those who don't know, Mega Man Adventures is going to be looking at Mega Man 1, 2, and 3, the original 3 games on NES. So yeah, it's awesome. I'm excited.
And I was not a fan. I'll put that out there to start with. I didn't know anything. I mean, I'd heard of Mega Man before, obviously, but I had not played any of the games. I played a lot of side-scrolling platformers growing up, but Mega Man, just for whatever reason, never hit my radar. And I actually think that was a good thing, because it kind of let me balance Mike a little bit with his over-enthusiasm. He's like, we need to do this and this and this, because it'll match the game. I'm like, that's great, but let's make it a good game first, then we'll worry about matching the game. So I think it's good to have a little bit of a buffer there. Now, I did end up playing them, and I really ended up enjoying them. After I heard we were getting the license and we're going to work on them, I did want to have some familiarity with it, and I had a great time playing the video games. But I think it was good that I wasn't such a super fan coming in, because it did let us balance fandom versus good gameplay and make it all together.
Super important. Sometimes you try to put too much in from the video game, and you realize that it's just not necessary. It doesn't make for a better experience, right? Sometimes less is more. So I totally understand that. I guess let's talk about the game, Mega Man Adventures here. So I guess, can you give us a summary, what it is in a nutshell, I guess, before we get into a more deep dive?
Sure. So it's a 1 to 4 player solo and cooperative game, so no competitive play. And you can do one-off games where you're each going through one stage, like the video game, and then fighting one robot master, one boss at the end. Or you can put it together for a little campaign where you add up weapons and build up to Dr. Wily. But in terms of mechanics, we'll get into some specifics later, but it's kind of a mix of card play. Each player has a unique deck matching one of the 4 heroes that they're playing. And then the cards will generally give you dice. And it's sort of like dice actions or dice placement in a way, because to get by the obstacles that are in the stages and to confront the bosses you're fighting, you'll have to jump over obstacles, you'll have to shoot enemies, you'll have to run past giant spikes falling down upon you and that kind of stuff. So it's kind of a card play and dice placement sort of in a cooperative setting.
Yeah, it was really fun to work on the different traps from Mega Man and all the different things that fall down and spike traps and all the different enemies that come at you, and think, how mechanically can we represent that? That was one of my favorite parts of the design process. So that was really neat. And I also like how cooperative the game is. You're really working with your neighbors. You're not only doing things for yourself, you're not only doing card play for yourself, but you really have to, as a team, figure out who's going to get the best benefit, the most bang for their buck, and who really needs the most help, to get by the challenges that are in front of them.
Yeah. From my limited plays that so far, definitely I really enjoyed the table talk that came from trying to figure out, okay, I need this die. No, okay, hang on, I need this card instead. Yeah, so a lot of good strategy required for this one. So I guess fans at home are probably going to be wondering which heroes are in the game. Would one of you guys like to tell us which heroes are in the game?
Sure, I'm the Mega Man nerd, so I guess I'll do that. But we've got Mega Man, of course. We've got Proto Man, who came in Mega Man 3. We've got Roll, Mega Man's sister, who was kind of like, I think she might have been hinted at in a couple of the early games, but didn't have a major role until later games. And then we have Rush, who also first showed up in Mega Man 3. That is Mega Man's robot dog and helper, who can turn into jets and water submersibles.
Rush
and
Coil, man. The ultimate
Rush
ability.
Coil. Always Rush Coil. You got to start with that so you can jump up to the high spots. But yeah, so those are the 4. Mega Man, Proto Man, Roll, and Rush.
So I suppose the best way to start things off would probably be to explain how a round works in the game.
So yeah, you can see on screen right now the basic round overview, but you each draw 4 cards from your unique deck, and then you have the planning phase. This is where a lot of the table talk and kind of cooperation that Scottie mentioned comes in. You're going to play 3 out of your 4 cards onto your player board. 2 of them will be support cards, which will generally give dice to both you and the players to your side. So the card you play on the left is going to help the player to your left. The card you play on your right is going to help the player to your right. And they're usually giving you dice in one of 3 colors that tend to give the 3 main actions: jumping, shooting, and running. And, you can see your stage card. You can see what's coming up ahead of you. And you want to ask each other, oh, man, I really need a lot of shooting. Oh, man, there's so many enemies on this card. Please help me out. So that's that's really what the planning phase is all about. Now, additionally, you play one card for its skill effect. Each card has a unique ability at the bottom of the card, and these are fully unique for each character. They each have 4 different types of skill effects in their deck. So that is also kind of hanging out. Then you go to the action phase. You're going to go through the stage cards, which I think Scottie will be showing later on the screen.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll each have a different set of challenges. And basically, you roll all the dice that you gained into your dice pool from the cards that were planned. And then you'll spend the results to overcome the different challenges. So you can jump over this. You can run and then shoot this. And for any of the ones that you either choose not to or that you can't overcome, you take some damage. Just think of Mega Man like you ran through that enemy and took the hit, and then you use your invulnerability frames to get past him and keep going. So you always have that choice. And the thing is, you have a ton of ways to mitigate your luck and change your results. You have the skill card you played. Each player has their 4th card, which is called a boost card, and they can play on any player, so you're kind of paying attention to each other's turns as you run through your stuff. They can play it to give you extra bonuses or dice. And then you also have weapons. Mega Man is all about weapons and items. And you can spend your weapon energy to do a ton of different effects. We've got one weapon for every single Robot Master in the game, plus the 4 starting weapons that you use in a campaign. So it's 26 unique weapons total. A lot of options. And you can also spend weapon energy just to re-roll your dice. So if you don't like the effect your weapon has for a given situation, you can always mitigate the luck you had. And yeah, that's basically it. Each player will do that with all the other players helping out with boosts and other effects. And then when you're all done, you clean up. You all get rid of the stage card that's on top, the one that you just overcame. And you never have to repeat a stage card. This is playing as though all of you are on your last life. So you do have energy tanks to heal, but no continues, no extra lives. You just got to blitz through in one go and, be like a speed runner and win it all. But then the cleanup phase, you just clean up all the cards you played. You get a new hand of 4 cards at the beginning of the next round. And once you go through your stage, you fight the boss, which is kind of a different thing. We'll get into that soon. Mm-hmm. But it uses the same basic mechanics, except you don't know what the boss's pattern is, and you have to try to deal with them. And you might have the weapon that matches their weakness to really stick it to them much more effectively.
Well, I was going to say, what I really like about it and seeing the stage card ahead is you can kind of see, it's like you've already run through this before, right? Mega Man doesn't change. The stage doesn't change from time to time when you go through it. So you know what's coming ahead. And I like how your buddies are encouraging you from the side. They're giving you these dice to help you out. It's like they're, you guys have practiced together. They're like, oh, don't forget to jump here. You got to jump and then shoot the guy in the eye.
Backseat players, right? They're behind the couch
really,
pointing at things.
Exactly.
Give me the
right.
controller,
So
I can do it.
Exactly. You're all playing your own game, but they're sitting there helping you out. They might throw encouraging words with those boost cards from their hands, like, "Hey, I think you need to shoot more on this one." They give you a red dice to help you do that. And no, not jump, shoot. So depending on what you roll, it really kind of affects, where the outcome was. But I thought it was really neat how we kind of put all that together. And then we have mitigation as well. So a lot of these dice games, you don't have a lot of mitigation. And it gives you choices as well, because the weapons can not only be used for whatever power is on them, but the power from the weapons can also be used to re-roll dice.
Yeah, and that was, by the way, the toughest part of the design, especially like when we were first getting the concept. Because first of all, Mega Man is not cooperative. It's True. One character running through the stage. And second of all, it's a platformer, and we've seen a lot of games struggle to kind of make platformers feel like platformers. So we've been very happy. We've done a ton of playtesting, and a lot of the playtesters have been big Mega Man fans, like me and like you, Scottie. Mm-hmm. And they've seen the theme kind of bleeding through. So it's clearly not exactly the same as the Mega Man game, but I think it hits a lot of the kind of key points and the key energy of the experience.
So yeah, that was a great round summary, and I've shown some of the things on screen that you were talking about. We can take a closer look at perhaps the player dashboard really quickly here. We see that the left support and the right support cards, like you mentioned, and each of these action cards, like you said, has a top half and a bottom half. The top half would be for providing support. The bottom half is for your own abilities that you would play.
Yeah, and the nice thing is you slide them underneath the board, so you only have to see the relevant half. You don't have kind of like the icons bugging you as you're playing through the round.
And you've also got the 3 weapon energies right above the weapon slots, correct? So that's the ones you would use to re-roll your dice, you mentioned. Any weapon cards, max 3 cards, I assume, which is why we have the 3 slots, right?
Yeah, and that's only in campaign mode where as you defeat Robot Masters, you get their weapon. I mean, that's you can't play a Mega Man game without having that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And we're gonna get to the Robot Masters, like you said, shortly, which we'll discuss how they work and their weaknesses and things like that. And above the top of the dashboard, there's 3 icons there. Peter, you want to explain what those are?
Yeah, so those are bonus tokens. So those are things you could do to like save yourself up. Those are the only things you can really transfer from round to round, besides, I guess, your weapon energy and your health. But you're going to get these bonus tokens from doing certain things. Again, Mega Man wouldn't be Mega Man without, stuff you destroy, dropping stuff every once in a while. So you get drops that'll do it, or certain characters have more usage of those bonus tokens and have more ability to get those bonus tokens than others. Some will be able to share them with other characters. So there's a lot of ways to get them, but they're just another way to, first of all, mitigate your luck, but also carry things over from round to round. Maybe I'll take a little bit more damage this round to help myself in the long run.
Last thing I guess to point out really is your actual health track. It starts at 5 and it goes down to Dr. Wily's face, which is when you blow up, right?
He's just waiting to get you, yeah.
And one of the interesting things is you can never go there. Like, as soon as you hit Dr. Wily's face, one player, everybody loses. So the way an energy tank works is if you're at 2 health and you take 2 damage, you can't take 1 damage and then use the energy tank and take 1 more. You have to use that energy tank right then and there. So you go back up to 5 health and knock immediately right back down to 3 health.
And it's just like in the game.
So
I'm sure all of the people who have played Mega Man have had the terror of like their life almost being low and the boss is almost dead. And you're like, do I pause now?
Yeah,
do I pause now and heal, or do I wait until later? Nothing's worse than
as the bullet's coming at your head, you realize you're not jumping out of the way, or you jumped right into the bullet. You have to pause, use that energy tank, and then you're still going to take the damage from it. So, when we came up with that, it really it worked from day one. We had tried a couple other things for health, and nothing really felt right, but that felt absolutely right when we came up with that energy tank mechanisms.
I guess what we could do before we move on is also we talked a little bit about how the different heroes sort of not necessarily play differently, but have different abilities in their decks. Do you want to give us a quick rundown of how the 4 different characters sort of differentiate from one another?
Sure. So they've each got, like I said, in their 16-card deck, they have 4 copies each of the 4 different skills. So they each got 4 unique skills. And then they've each got a unique support ability. So Proto Man has some cards with a different ability at the top than anybody else. But basically, Mega Man is the master of the bonus tokens that Peter was mentioning. He not only gains them more quickly than anybody else, but he can also spend them to get really, really powerful effects, like gain a ton of dice or gain other bonus tokens. So he's kind of the most flexible, tends to have the right tools for the job at any time. Proto Man, my personal favorite, although also the one that is the one that makes me get mad the most, is he has his shield, of course. He has a Proto Shield, but then he's the risk-reward character, because Proto Man's always been a little bit reckless, right? So he has a lot of abilities that will have him have the chance to get something really good, but it could also hurt him. So for the players that like a little bit more randomness, a little bit more luck of the draw, a little bit more excitement, Proto Man's the way to go. Rush.
Well, let's not forget, he has the most dice ability to get dice in the game, but he hurts himself and the fellow players at the table.
He can give double dice with his support abilities, but he hurts them as well. So yeah, he's kind of like overloading them with too much energy because he also has the reason. Well, anyway, I don't want to get into Mega Man lore.
Let's go deep.
I was going to talk about Proto Man's imperfect reactor that Dr. Wily had to fix, but we'll leave that alone. And then Rush, as you might imagine, since his role in the video games was support and like carrying Mega Man and taking him underwater and that kind of stuff, he's the strongest support character, so almost all of his abilities can give things to other players. Although don't worry, if you're playing solo, he can still help himself as well. So he can give bonus tokens to people, he can give healing to people, he can transport them and turn into Rush Jet, that kind of stuff. And Roll is mainly focused on weapon energy. She can regain weapon energy the most quickly. She can give other people weapon energy back. And she can also spend weapon energy for other effects beyond like using her actual weapons. So that's kind of the theme and the focus of each of the 4 characters.
All right, so I guess moving on, let's talk about the stage cards, because these things are really cool. They're tarot-sized cards, and these are the ones that are really going to dictate, how you get to the robot masters. So up on the screen here, I've got an image showing one of the stage cards, and we have Proto Man, for example. Here, his acrylic standee is on the leftmost obstacle. Is that the term we're using in the game? An obstacle, I guess?
I think it's challenge spaces.
Okay.
Yeah, there are obstacles in, I don't know, it's all the same thing.
So it's a challenge space. And we have the stage card, or the Robot Master card, on its stage side first. And that sort of gives you like an environmental I guess, effect that sort of says, well, this is Bomb Man stage, this is why it's bad. So
Yeah, so
let's talk about
we
that.
wanted to have kind of infinite combinations and variety, or maybe not infinite, but certainly way too high to worry about. So in addition to having a bunch of unique stage cards, and the art, the pixel art comes from Mega Man 1, 2, and 3, so you can kind of mix and match if you want. We have, like Scottie said, 22, one for each Robot Master, 22 unique stage effects that will modify the stuff you're doing in the stage. Like here for Bomb Man, I don't know if y'all remember those exploding missiles that we tried to pick the most iconic thing from each stage, and I hated those guys. But if you have too many jumps after you roll your dice, you take damage from one of the missiles hitting you while you're jumping all over the place. So you have to weigh the stage effects against the stage card, which in this case, you can see, if you're looking at the top of the card, it has one jump to get over the metal on the left, and then two more jumps to jump over those spikes on the right. So this stage is actively telling you, get jumps, get jumps. And the Bomb Man card is saying, no, don't. So, we'll have like kind of fun combinations with that. Even trying out the exact same stage card will feel a little different when you are in a different boss's stage. That was the way that we could make the game fun and super varied, no matter how many times you played it, instead of like having the exact... I mean, yes, I know in the actual video game, Bomb Man stage is always the same, but we wanted even more variety than that, and not just like having the exact same cards every time you did a single stage.
Right. So I guess we could just explain how it works from left to right. So you would roll all your dice, correct? Peter, want to just give us an example of how this guy's turn would go, I guess, Proto Man's turn?
Yeah, so I mean, you've drawn your cards, you've placed your cards in the certain spots on your board, and you've got that boost card in your hand, and then you look at the stage. So you roll all your dice, and then you look at the stage. You need a jump to get past the first part of the stage. If you don't, if you notice on the bottom, you're going to take 1 damage from that. If you do pass it, though, you'll also notice a surprise box there on the bottom left. That means you draw a token from the surprise box.
Yeah, and those represent the items that enemies drop when you defeat them, or in this case, the environmental items, like, you'll have that health sitting up on a platform in this case, so you jumped over the metal and then jumped up to get some healing or something.
Yeah, and then if you look at the second one, there's that weight icon. You'll look at an hourglass, and a lot of times in Mega Man or in a lot of video game platformers, you have to sit there and wait for something to happen. The enemy does something on a certain timing pattern, so it's represented by weight icons. And all you have to do to overcome a weight is use any two of the other icons together. So it has to be a pair, though. It has to be a pair of shoots or a pair of runs or a pair of jumps to get rid of that weight. And then you have to do a shoot as well. And again, on the bottom, if you don't do that, then you take some damage. And then same for the third one. You have to overcome those symbols. And you really got to jump to get over those jump traps. So that totally makes sense. We tried to throw as much theme in there as possible. We weren't just throwing random icons out there. The amount of damage they do and the things you have to do to get by them. We thought about that very specifically for each of the items. And these are all iconic. We expect a lot of people to want to relive the games that they know and see the things that they know. And that's one of the cool things. We got, most of the enemies in, I think, from the games. We definitely got all the stages in and all the bosses in. So it was really nice working with that stuff because there's so much content there that they've created, the creators of the Mega Man series, and getting to play with that was really fun.
This is not like $100 game. We crammed a ton of stuff into a pretty small box, I think. So
the amount of content in this is staggering, to be honest. Like, again, it's because it's 3 video games in one, essentially, right? All right, so you have a stage card, you've got the overall stage effect, let's say Bomb Man in this example. Do you just have to get through this one stage card and then it's off to the Robot Master?
So it depends on the number of players. We wanted the game to always, once you're experienced, take maybe 25 to 35 minutes to get through one set. And then if you want to do an entire campaign and get all the way to Dr. Wily, that's about like 90 minutes once you know the game. So if there's more players, you go through fewer stage cards. Okay. And that way the game kind of keeps its same fast-paced experience. But in any case, it would always be more than one of these. In solo or 2-player play, for example, you'd go through 4 stage cards each before you would get to your Robot Master.
All right, so it's not just, a few challenges here and then Robot Master. You got to get through multiple cards. Okay, but let's say you survive and you do manage to make it to the scary Robot Master waiting for you behind those 2 doors, right? So how do the Robot Masters work? Let's take Bomb Man here for an example.
Yeah, so if you look in the upper right of Bomb Man's card next to his cool pixel art over there, there's the number 4. That's how many boss cards you're going to have to get past. You draw 4 cards, and each of them works kind of like one section of a stage over here. So you're going to have to overcome certain things, and you're going to take a certain amount of damage if you don't. And then underneath, of course, is their weakness, because we know every boss has a weakness, and that unlocks certain things. If you have different weapons, if you have weapons that they're vulnerable to, you're going to get other bonuses in addition to what your normal weapon could do, or using it for rerolls as well. So it just gives you more options if you find the correct boss that matches your weapon. And then if you notice, obviously they have a big explosion power. So they have special powers, of course, for every boss. And then on the bottom middle there is a little skull with the run symbol next to it. Every boss is going to have a unique thing that they are very vulnerable to. So for Bomb Man stage, you're going to need more runs than usual. And that's represented on these boss cards by the skull symbol on the boss card. Whenever you see that, that means you have to have a run. So it'll be something and a skull, or a skull by itself, or 2 skulls, or who knows.
Okay, so we talked about the Robot Masters. We talked about the fact that you can play this game either as a one-shot or as a campaign, getting through all the Robot Masters and then eventually facing Dr. Wily. So let's talk about the campaign. So how many Robot Masters generally do you have to get through before getting to Wily, and how does Wily work?
So basically a campaign is 3 games put together, and you don't have to play them all at once, as long as you keep track of which weapons you earned, which is the only thing that carries over from game to game, then you're good to go. But yeah, you're playing 3 games in a row, and you have more weapons, so the game gets tougher. You have fewer energy tanks, you have fewer resources as you go into each game. And when you finally get to Dr. Wily's castle, we went back and forth on having you play more stages, and it was kind of longer than we wanted the campaign experience to be, because we want experienced players to be able to sit down and play a whole campaign in one sitting if they want to, without it being too long. So we went with instead is, Scottie, you know this well, when you're near the end of Dr. Wily's castle, you have the boss kind of rush, the gauntlet of bosses, where you have to fight all the Robot Masters again, and then go against Wily. So that's what we did here. Instead of doing stage cards, it's just boss after boss after boss as your weapon energy runs out, as you get more and more desperate. So each player will fight 2 regular Robot Masters being brought back by Dr. Wily, and then you can see on the screen Scottie sharing some of the some of the Wily bosses you'll face as your final boss. So one of you might be fighting Mecha Dragon, jumping over the pits as he chases you. One of you might be fighting, oh my gosh, I hate him, Yellow Devil.
Yellow Devil.
you gotta hope you have electricity, and then you can do the pause trick and just get all the extra damage on him. And then Dr. Wily, of course, shows up too. So you're not always fighting specifically Wily. You can fight any of the mini bosses from the Wily Castle stages. But yeah, so it's kind of fun because it's a different way to play. And you could just jump right into that mode if you want to, just take some random weapons. But we like the actual building up of the campaign where you get the weapons for the Robot Masters you defeat and then take them forward, just like in the video game.
Yeah, even though it's very similar to the base game, it feels very different doing a Wily stage, for sure. So, I mean, you're doing all the same mechanisms, but the level of stress and pressure and the amount of management you have to do because you have more weapons at that point, and it just becomes a much bigger, broader puzzle. So I think even heavy gamers will enjoy that stage a lot when they get
right. And I like the fact that it sort of gives you something to look forward to, right? It's not just more stages again; it's the boss rush mode, so you got to get through that, and you're like, oh man. And I assume that the Robot Masters you're facing in Wily's Castle are the ones from the campaign that you've defeated, right? It's not just random.
That's up to the players. Oh. We let them be random or not, because we don't want to limit you. If you got bored playing that boss already, you can play a totally different one. But yes, if you want to be fully thematic, it should be the exact same people you already fought.
All right, so it's up to the players.
You got teleporters every time. Yes.
I mean, it works the same way as the different games, right? You can play Mega Man 1 self-contained, no problem. You can play Mega Man 2 self-contained and Mega Man 3 self-contained. Or, if you want to get wild and crazy, you could theoretically shuffle them together. But, I mean, there's nothing to prevent them. There's no difficulty scaling between them. We didn't make Mega Man 1 bosses a bazillion times harder than anything else.
They should be, because Mega Man 1 sucks sometimes.
Right. Yeah, so we didn't put that much theme. That's where I held Mike back a little bit. I'm like, no. We can't just make... I know this is the best weapon in the game, but we can't really make it the best weapon in our game. Like, it's still got to be balanced with the other
and
stuff
I wanted to get
bit,
in... for a while there, we were trying to get in, for those who played Mega Man 3, where you refight the bosses from Mega Man 2, like 2 of them in each stage. You have to go back to the stages. Yeah!
That was a fun callback, man. First time playing Mega Man 3, I was like, what?
Yeah, it was a fun callback until you fought Woodman again and realized they'd increased the height of his leaves by like 1 pixel and it was impossible to dodge. I hate that guy.
Oh, Woodman. Okay, well, one thing I'm personally excited about is the fact that you can play this game solo, which is, always important nowadays. So how does solo work in this game if you don't have people to play with, essentially, to share your dice and all that?
So in one player and two player play, Dr. Light basically acts like another player, because we mentioned you're playing the support cards that go to the sides and boost the players next to you. So in two player, you kind of have a third Dr. Light player sitting in between you, and you play cards to help them out, and Dr. Light plays cards, well, you select cards from the Dr. Light cards you draw to help you out. If you're seeing the cards on the screen right now, the top die is the color die that you get to assist you. And then the middle effect is the die that Dr. Light wants. Okay, now, thematically, this is supposed to represent him sending you some support and you may be overloading your systems and, like, not taking care of yourself and using the energy he sent you correctly. But mechanically, we wanted to represent the fact that in the multiplayer game, you have to care about the other players. Like, if Peter's like, I need yellow, I'm going to die, and I'm like, nope, I'm playing red because I don't care about you, then, the entire team is going to fail. So Dr. Light represents that with this automated damage. If I don't pass him for the card on the left, a blue die, if I don't put that on that side of my board, then I take 1 damage. That's kind of like representing the lack of cooperation that I'm doing in the game.
That's awesome.
And solo works I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, and very importantly, the colors don't always match either. I know in these 3 examples they do. Like, he wants a blue dice and you're giving him a blue dice. So that's really good if the stage requires a lot of blue. But that is not always going to be the case. He might request a red die.
I'll make sure to show some alternate examples here. So we can see that up on screen now.
Yeah, and you always have a choice of which cards you use. So you're never forced to use one of the cards. And that's, again, a source of cooperation and discussion for 2 players. With solo play, you get 4 of them to pick from because you're going to use 2 out of the 4. Basically, one's the player to your right and one's the player to your left. So solo works exactly the same. It's all the same mechanics. I mean, clearly you're losing the discussion, but the puzzle becomes a little bit tougher because you also have to decide which of these Dr. Light cards you want to use each round. And that can be a challenge, especially when they don't give you what you need, and you got to kind of work with that.
Well, speaking of challenges, there's also an additional optional mode, I guess, in this called Sabotage.
If you're crazy.
So,
because like Peter and I just said, we just played and lost a game last night. It is still a tough game even for us. But yeah, sorry, go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, well, let's talk about Sabotage here. So I've got this up on screen here, the Sabotage cards. How do these work?
Yeah, so we wanted, the original goal of the game was for Mega Man fans and people who weren't fans of the game, who are just fans of cooperative game, to all enjoy this game, right? So Mega Man fans aren't all necessarily board gamers, and so we wanted to make the intro difficulty where everybody can play and everybody can sit down at the table and enjoy itself. So, that's where we introduce the level. But if you really want to ramp up that puzzle to the next level, you can do that by adding sabotage cards. So this is for people who really want a heavy challenge. Those people who say, oh man, I play co-op games and I want to win 10% of the time or whatever. Or maybe it's like 75%. And that's the nice part. You can vary your difficulty by just adding more sabotage cards. Obviously, the more you use, the harder the difficulty is going to be for the game. So you'll notice the middle one, for example, power failure. The dice are limited in the game, and you have a certain dice pool that you're building. But if you're removing one of each colored dice from the general supply, that means you can only potentially have 2 red dice at any given time. Now, there are ways to get them in the middle of your turn and things like that. So it doesn't make it an impossible challenge. It doesn't make it so that it is more difficult or less difficult depending on what you're facing. We really tried to make it more of a interesting puzzle than just strictly, more difficult. We wanted the challenge to be harder. It's almost like if you ever play Galaxy Trucker, Rough Road Ahead, those things just increase the difficulty and increase the challenge, but they also increase the puzzle and what you're going to have to think about. Yeah, and the nice thing is, again,
this is a very modular game. Like, not every option is listed explicitly in the rulebook, but the way to make the game easier, one of the main ways is to give yourself more energy tanks, because we provide more in the box than you actually need to play the standard difficulty setting. So if you wanted to have more variety in the game, but you don't want the game to be harder, you could play with an extra energy tank, but also play with a sabotage card to still get those if they seem, because they are intense, especially when the game's already pretty challenging. So yeah, we wanted to give players as many options as they want to play the game exactly the way they want. I play with my 6 and 9-year-old on an easier setting. They love it. But then you can also play with kind of hardcore gamers and I think make the game very difficult to win if you want to.
Well, that's good, and yeah, giving people the option, hey, that's always welcome, I'm sure. And just to be clear, so these are cards, you choose the amount of cards you play with, and they are pretty much set out at the beginning of the game, and they do not change or go away for the whole game.
Exactly. So Dr.
Correct.
Wily has sabotaged your efforts, sabotaged your systems,
Okay.
added something to the stages for the entire go-through.
Dr. Wily, curse it!
Yeah. And then he's going to just bow and say he's sorry, and we'll let him go again every time.
There's a little evil laugh.
That's right. And his eyebrow wiggles.
I guess, is there anything else you guys would like to say about the game before I move on to a couple of announcements regarding the game?
Well, we hope you go and try it out. We're going to get to that detail in a second. But yeah, we're really proud of it. So I think hopefully you'll enjoy it too.
All right,
Yep,
so
absolutely.
yeah, we have the pre-orders up on our web store right now as of the airing of this video. So you can go take a look at blacklistgamesllc.com/Mega Man Adventures for more details there. We hope to have this out by Q2 next year, if all goes well. Also, we are giving away a pre-order for the game. So all you need to do is email us at blggiveaways@outlook.com and make sure your email subject line is Mega Buster. That's 2 words.
Yeah.
And we'll basically pick one at random, and we'll email you if you are the lucky winner. And lastly, sorry, 2 more things. We should have a gameplay video, courtesy of these fine gentlemen here, either the day this video airs or shortly afterwards. So it'll be both on the One Stop Co-op Shop YouTube and on the Blacklist Games YouTube. So make sure you keep an eye open for that. And we should also have a tabletop simulator demo of Mega Man Adventures for you to try. Again, as of the airing of this video or shortly afterwards, you can keep visiting blacklistgamesllc.com/Mega Man Adventures to take a look and keep an eye open for that. All right, guys, so I guess that pretty much wraps up our Mega Man Adventures panel. Thanks again so much, Michael and Peter, for joining us. It was really great talking to you guys about this game. Have a great day, and for everyone watching at home, stay tuned. We got some more stuff coming at you in a bit.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
All right, everyone, we are back with Mitch Schroeder to talk about, to reveal a game that we have not talked about yet. We're super excited about it. Mitch, you are the designer of this game. Would you like to announce the title of this game?
Absolutely. So this is Street Fighter V Champion Edition Legends.
Okay, so for those of our viewers at home who are not familiar with your work, Mitch, can you tell us about yourself and what you've done?
Yeah, so as Scottie mentioned, my name is Mitch Schroeder. I've been working at Blacklist in development for a few years now, starting with Street Masters and working all the way up through Hour of Need.
That's right. Mitch has been with us for a long time, and he's also co-designer of Boruto Naruto Next Generations, the board game, which you might have caught earlier in the showcase. He designed that along with Jeff Frazier. But let's talk about Street Fighter. So, Mitch, first question, I guess, is... are you a Street Fighter fan? Is this something that you were excited to work on?
Yeah, I was absolutely ecstatic to work on this game. Street Fighter and I go back a long way. When I was a kid, Street Fighter 2 was the only video game my older brother would play with me. So whenever we'd go to, a pizza place or bowling alley, this is back in the day when those things existed and there were arcade cabinets in them, we'd always lose quite a few quarters to Street Fighter 2.
Oh man, the amount of money I've spent on the Street Fighter franchise, just arcades alone, not even funny. So I guess the first question people are going to have about this is which games does this game cover? I'm guessing Street Fighter V, right, Mitch?
Yeah, this game is specifically Street Fighter V. It has an enormous cast of characters that we're able to utilize, and it has a very friendly rule system, and it was really great to try and take that rule system and translate it to a board game.
So one thing I guess that people are going to ask themselves is this a competitive game?
So this is not a competitive game. This was something we talked about internally quite a bit. There already are a couple of PvP or 1v1 competitive Street Fighter games out there in the wild, and we didn't really want to redo something that someone had already done. So we decided we were going to make a cooperative game, taking all your favorite characters and putting them into a 1 to 4 player beat 'em up.
That's awesome. I mean, if anyone who's played any of the Street Fighter games know there's a lot of lore in the Street Fighter universe, and very often the World Warriors are teaming up, not facing off against each other, to take down like a common threat, right?
Yeah, that's just it. Even Street Fighter V has the Shadow Falls storyline where the World Warriors, you have Nash and Dhalsim and all these characters coming together from different parts of the world to try and stop the four kings, that's Fong, Balrog, Vega, and M. Bison, from completing Operation Chains. So that's kind of what our base game focuses on, is the scenarios from that Shadow Falls storyline pulled out and turned into a team up, beat 'em up kind of game.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's exciting. Just the fact that I can play with friends with all the Street Fighter characters, that's really cool. Speaking of the Street Fighter characters, we don't want to give away too much. We don't want to, reveal the entire cast of characters that will be in this game. I mean, there's a large cast in Street Fighter V Champion Edition, right? Let's see here. I know we have a couple that we can tease. So up on the screen here, we have a couple of familiar characters. Now, even if you've never played Street Fighter V, you'll definitely recognize some of these if you played any of the Street Fighter games. So we have Ryu, we have Ken, we have Chun-Li, we have one of my favorites, Sakura. Can we expect a lot more characters?
Yeah, there are a lot of characters in this game. Again, I don't want to get into all the surprises, but if you've played Street Fighter V, if you have a favorite character from that game, there's a very good chance they're going to show up in this.
So, you mentioned the four kings earlier. I'm guessing those four characters, again, Fong, Vega, Balrog, and M. Bison, they are the main nemesis in the game. Is that correct?
Yeah, so the four kings are the nemesis in this game. They are the four different bosses you are going to be trying to defeat. And each game, that's how you win the game, is defeating one of these bosses.
Awesome. And just like any good Street Fighter game, I gotta ask, I guess, is there any way to play as these bosses? Are they fighters in the game as well?
Yeah, it wouldn't really be Street Fighter if I didn't let you play as some of these characters. Like, who doesn't want to play as M. Bison? So each of them does have their own fighter abilities, and
M. Bison was always one of those favorites I used to play against my sister. I just Psycho Crush all the time. Oh man, she hated me for that. Now, before we get into gameplay, I guess one big question a lot of our fans are going to have is, how does this differ from Blacklist Games' other popular title, Street Masters?
Yeah, so I'm sure a lot of people seeing this are wondering, is this just Street Masters with a Street Fighter skin? And the answer is no. It plays absolutely nothing like Street Masters. The way that character cards work and character abilities completely different. It's a much quicker, faster, more aggressive game than Street Masters. It's just, we can get into explaining what this game is like, because without really explaining and going, into the details, it's hard for me to explain how it differs from Street Masters, but I think you'll all be able to agree at the end that this is not Street Masters.
So I'll just show an image right now again of the game laid out, so you can kind of see that it doesn't look like Street Masters. Right off the bat. So I guess let's talk about how you set up your fighter, and how you choose your fighter, what sort of configuration you have there. The first thing you do, I guess, when you set up the game, is you choose a fighter to play as. Right, each player will choose a fighter. You'll take a dashboard, and you'll take your fighter card and you'll put it on the round one side up. And then what do?
So each of the fighters has their own unique set of abilities, and these abilities are not going to be in a deck or a hand that you have to draw through. These abilities are always available to you. So you're going to take those four and put them onto the four slots on your board. And the reason we did this is because when someone's playing Ryu, for example, in the video game, it's very common to spam Hadoken. You know, everybody wants to do Hadokens, and I didn't want to make a game where Hadoken was stuck at the bottom of your deck, and you keep drawing cards and you're never getting that Hadoken. So the most the best abilities, the most popular abilities for each of these characters, we laid out straight on the player board, so they're always available to you.
That's awesome. And then I can see here at the top of the dashboard, we filled up the meter with green tokens. What is that?
So yeah, at the top of there is a health bar. It's going to look a lot like a health bar from Street Fighter V. So you have 4 health on that side, and then at the bottom of your dashboard, there's also an EX gauge. That's going to start the game empty, but as you play the game, you're going to play some abilities that will charge that, and also as you defeat enemies, you're going to be charging that meter as well. And that meter has several different uses that we can get into when we talk about the gameplay.
Right. Okay. Now, other than setting up your character card and your 4 ability cards, what else does a fighter need to be able to play the game?
So in addition to your fighter card and your ability cards, you're also going to choose a style deck. So one of the great things about Street Fighter V that is really unique to that particular iteration of Street Fighter is how different players can play, or different characters can play very differently. I mean, you can play Ken as a zoner if you want, keeping enemies at a distance, really watching your range. Or you could play him as a rushdown, where you're just trying to get into your enemy's face and beat him down as quickly as possible. So I didn't want to create a game where Ken could only be played in one way, where he has his own deck of cards that can be played in one way every single time. So he's going to be able to choose a style. It could be rushdown, it could be ranged or zoner, it could be grappler. You can play Ken as a grappler, why not? So you're going to pick that deck, and that's going to determine his style for that particular game.
Right, and if I look at the character cards themselves, I see that Ken here has the words zoner and rushdown underneath. Is that so? He's not limited to those. He can play any of them, but that's just the recommended starting styles. Is that correct?
Correct. We wanted to make it so that people who are fans of the game and maybe aren't as big a board gamers, or maybe aren't into the variety, they don't want some of the complications with having to mix and match decks. They're just a fan of the video game, they want to play Ken. So we put those examples there so you could play Ken more or less how he's played in Street Fighter V without getting too crazy.
Right, okay. That makes sense. So I guess before we get into anything else, let's keep digging a bit deeper at these style decks here. Up on the screen, I'm going to pull up an example of a style deck, or at least some of the cards from a style deck, the Charge style deck. And I've got 3 cards displayed here, such as Lunging Strike, Charging Up, and Dash. So do you want to maybe explain how these cards will work when you play them, and what they can be used towards later?
Yeah, definitely. So the way this game works is that on your turn, you're going to be able to play 2 cards. And when you do that, when you play a card, it's going to, you're going to resolve the actions on it, the icons, from left to right. So if you look at the Lunging Strike, you'll see that there's kind of a D-pad icon. That's a move icon. The next icon to the right is an attack icon, and then an EX. So in this particular card, you can move 1 space, attack with 2 dice, and then charge your EX gauge for one charge. Underneath the movement, you'll see the charge ability, which is unique to the charge deck. And that just means if this is the second card you played this turn, that ability gets boosted. It gets +1, so it becomes a move 2. Once you've played a card, it's going to go into your combo meter. So below your player board, you have a combo meter, and you're going to be able to use the icons above the names. You'll see Lunging Strike has a kick icon there. You can use those icons to trigger the abilities on your fighter board. So some fighters, or each fighter has 4 different abilities, as we already discussed, and each of those abilities requires a certain set of icons to use it.
Right, okay, so my combo meter has a certain amount of cards in there that I played previously. And let's say I want to go back really quick here to an example. Let's say Ryu. I want to trigger a Hadoken. I have to sacrifice a card or multiple cards to at least have 1 joystick icon and 1 attack melee icon, or punch icon. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly. And that's one of the really fun things we're able to do with this game is because you're discarding these icons in order to do the special abilities. We were able to make it so that the icons you discard are the actual button combinations you would push in the game. So, if anyone's played Street Fighter before, which I assume people watching this have, to do a Hadoken, it's quarter circle with the joystick and then a punch button. So we made the actual combination here, joystick, punch, just to kind of bring some of that Street Fighter flavor. It's a nice little Easter egg for fans of this series.
That's awesome. I guess speaking of the Hadoken, while we're staring at it here, I see the icon here. It looks like a fireball as opposed to that other icon you mentioned earlier, which we can see on their collarbone breaker, which is a melee attack. So this is a ranged attack, I'm guessing, correct?
Yeah, so there's two different ranges. There's ranged, short range, which is into adjacent spaces, and that's kind of the hollow icon with a single wave in front of it. And then there's also long range attacks, which would be 2 spaces away, and that's a solid icon with 2 waves in front of it. So you just look at the number of waves, and that's how many spaces that ability can shoot.
That's awesome. I'm a big fan of iconography versus a lot of text. So this game, it looks like it can be played very easily by anyone who doesn't need to read a lot, or if it's not their native tongue or something like that, which is pretty cool. And so the number inside the values of these icons is, for attacks, that is, are the number of dice you would roll, you said, right?
Yeah.
So let's take a look at, let's see here. I guess the nemesis. You're going to have to also choose a nemesis to go up against, right? When you're playing this game. So let me pull up. We have Balrog here. Balrog here seems to have, an R1 side and an R2 side. Maybe we're getting ahead of ourselves, but you want to maybe explain how the nemesis works and why it has 2 sides, that sort of thing?
Yeah, so the R1 or the round 1 side is where you're going to start the game with the nemesis. And at the beginning of the game, the nemesis is not on the board. Their miniature, their acrylic standee is going to be on the nemesis board, and you can't attack them. You can't interact with them in any way. You have to complete certain objectives or spend a certain amount of time in that scenario before the boss or the nemesis will spawn. So while he's off the board, he's going to be kind of a puppet master, changing the way that his minions respond and react to the world. So each minion, or if you look at his abilities, you'll see a certain icon that's a minion icon. There's a standard minion that doesn't have a star, and then there's an elite minion that does have a star. When you trigger that action, you're going to look at what type of minion that is, and then that minion is going to do the icons there. So if you look at pin down, for example, the standard minion is going to attack, and he's going to move, and then he's going to stun somebody, which is that final starry circle icon there.
Right. Stunning doesn't sound like a good thing. So what's interesting is that you said there's minions, so you're not just necessarily fighting a known Street Fighter character. So there's minions. I'm guessing that the Shadaloo organization that these bosses work for, right, or that they maybe run. They have minions. Yeah, so exactly. So you're gonna be going around fighting a whole bunch of these little. I don't want to call them little because some of them are pretty interesting. But these enemies that are not necessarily the named character you're waiting to come out.
Yeah, at the beginning of the game, you're going to be fighting mostly minions, working your way up to the boss. When you start the game, you're maybe not the most powerful. All of your abilities are at they're not upgraded. As you play the game, you defeat enemies, you charge that EX meter we talked about, and you can spend, one of the things you can do with that EX meter is you can spend it to upgrade your abilities. So you flip your ability card over, and there's a more powerful version on the other side. So you really want to upgrade these abilities before the boss comes out, because otherwise the boss is going to wreck you.
Right. So upgrading abilities, that's exciting. And speaking of, before we get back to the nemesis, I noticed that the fighter card you have says R1, round 1, I guess, kind of like the double-sided nemesis card had. So what happens, how do you get to the R2 side of your fighter card?
So just like in the video game, you're going to start in round 1. Once you get defeated, your health is depleted, you're KO'd. But the game doesn't end there. You flip your card over, You gain 4 health back. You're going to get a full health meter. And then you're also going to unlock a new special ability, a 5th ability for your fighter, and that is the critical art. So the critical art was something new added to Street Fighter V. And it's a very powerful ability, unique to your character, that costs 3 EX tokens or 3 EX bars in the video game to perform. So in this case, we did that same thing. You're going to spend 3 EX tokens to perform it, as well as any icon on a card from your combo meter.
Okay, so you got that flexibility, which allows you to pretty much trigger your critical art more often.
Yes, exactly.
That's exciting, because once you get that critical art out, it sounds like you're going to want to use it a lot. So I guess going back to the Nemesis, so how does he end up flipping, or how do they, I guess, flip to their R2 side?
So most of the time, the standard default way that it's going to happen is to empty the Nemesis deck. So as I explained before, on a player's turn, they're going to play 2 cards, and then they can discard cards from their combo meter to do abilities. They can play as many abilities as they want. Once they have finished playing their 2 cards, they're going to draw 2 cards. It's the end of their turn, and then there's going to be a Nemesis phase. So on the Nemesis phase, you're going to draw a Nemesis card, and it's going to tell you where to spawn new minions, and it's also going to trigger an ability on the Nemesis board. So just like the fighters have icons that spawn or that trigger their abilities, the Nemesis is the same way. Their card has a punch, a kick, or a joystick icon that's going to trigger their board. Once that Nemesis deck is depleted, you're going to reshuffle it, starting again, but now the Nemesis flips over, and you're going to spawn the Nemesis onto the board, and his abilities are going to completely change. So the Nemesis that you were fighting, the strategies that he's employed, they're going to change, and it's going to shake up the game midway through.
That makes sense. I mean, Balrog's not going to sit in a corner if he comes out to play, right? He's going to want to just punch through everything. So,
yeah, exactly. And that doesn't mean that his minions stop working. Now, his minions are going to do something different than they did in the first half, but they're not just going to become complacent. They're still going to be hitting you while Balrog is also trying to take you out.
That's awesome. And I like the fact that, the Nemesis deck is, constantly playing tricks, essentially spawning minions and doing all sorts of things. And then it's also a countdown timer. So you really feel the pressure to accomplish your goals, or at least level up your character fast enough so that you can be ready for when the Nemesis comes out. That's pretty exciting. So, other than the minions and the Nemesis, are there any other, opponents you'll be facing in any given stage?
Yeah, so one other thing that was really important to me to put into this game was to give it that 1v1 feel. Even though this is a cooperative game and we didn't want it to be competitive, it still needed to feel like Street Fighter. So it needed to have that one-on-one feeling. So every fighter is going to have a rival, someone that is only going to attack them. So at the beginning of the game, when you set up your fighter, you're going to choose any rival you want, placing them on the board, and that fighter or that rival is specifically going to track your character, ignoring all other characters.
That's awesome. And up on the screen right now, I do have an example of some rival cards, so you guys can get a sneak peek of who you might be going up against. And these may or may not also be fully playable fighters. But we have Birdie, Karen, Ibuki, and of course Ken here shown just to show you that he can also be a rival. What's interesting is that they all seem to have completely different patterns and abilities.
Yeah, their abilities are all based on at least one attack or one series of attacks that they would have in the video game. So I didn't want them to just feel like generic minions where they move and punch or something like that. They really needed to have some flavor. So that's what I tried to incorporate into that.
I also noticed they have an R1 side. Does that mean they have an R2 side?
They do have an R2 side, so just because you defeat your rival once doesn't mean he's out. Just like your health bar, you need to be the rivals need to be defeated twice. This is Street Fighter after all, so you need to defeat your rival twice.
Exactly, and then when that happens, you get to shout KO at the loudest. Yeah,
exactly.
So we've talked about the fighters, we've talked about the nemesis, the rivals, the minions, but where is this all taking place? I'm guessing we have stages?
Yeah, so there are a number of stages in the game, and they're taking place on a board. So each stage has its own pre-built map. It's not randomized. You're gonna take the um, uh, Shadaloo base, for example. You're gonna take that map and build it. The stage card or sheet is going to tell you or show you exactly how to build that map. And then it's going to have a set of rules that are going to shake up how you play. There's different objectives you're going to have to claim, or different kinds of enemies that you're going to have to defeat. All sorts of different things that the stage is going to throw at you. And each stage is going to look differently, not only with artwork but with how the tiles fit together. If you look at the Shadaloo stage here, for example, the setup shows that there's a big tile in the middle and then a small tile off to the left and off to the right. And some of the other stages, they look quite different from that.
I like that. I like that it's not just a single, square tile for every stage. Not that that's a bad thing, but I like that we have that modularity, if you will, where every time you play a different stage, it might have different configurations, which means you'll have to think differently in terms of strategy. I also noticed that there's something, for example, here in the Shadaloo base that says Fan Slam. Is that some sort of constant amongst all the stages?
Yeah, so one of the things that happens in the Street Fighter V video game is there are these stage transitions. So if you defeat an enemy with a particular attack when you're at the edge of a stage, you can often knock them through a wall into another room, or you can push them over the edge and they fall to their death. There are these crazy things that happen. So I wanted to make sure to include that in this game. So for example, in the Shadaloo base, one of the stage transitions is to knock a guy into another room and he hits a fan or an engine from a jet, really, and gets electrocuted. So I wanted to make sure that that flavor was in this game.
That's great, and I like that. Again, it definitely isn't just about punching the other person. You can use all sorts of different things on the stage to really, work to your advantage. And I'm guessing also, from what I can tell here, that there's also environmental obstacles in each stage.
Yeah, so most of the stages have some kind of environmental obstacles. For example, in this stage, the Shadaloo base, there's a tank and then there's also a jet, and those just act as normal spaces. You walk on those, and they kind of give you an advantage because they're adjacent to more spaces. So they're just an advantageous place to be. Other stages are a little bit different. Some of them have bottlenecked areas that are walled off. They're a little more difficult to get to. Some of them, well, you know what? I won't spoil too much, but there's a lot of variety in the way stages are made.
That's awesome. All right. Well, there's a lot more to discuss about this game, a lot more to reveal, but we're not going to do that just yet. But what we will reveal is how you can get your hands on this game. It is coming to GameFound early 2022. So we're really, really excited about that. We should also, by the end of this video, when it's done airing, we should have a gameplay video available on our YouTube channel as well, which Mitch will be doing via Tabletop Simulator. So I guess before we wrap up this panel, is there anything else you want to touch on regarding Street Fighter V Champion Edition Legends, or anything specifically about the design that you're proud of, the stuff we've talked about anyways, that you're really excited for people to get their hands on?
I think we've talked about pretty much everything. I don't think there's anything we missed, but I'm really happy with the way that the style decks came out and how they interact with fighters. Like every single game you play is going to feel different because of those style decks. You can play Ryu, as a Shoto, as a Rushdown, as a Charge, and he's going to feel different every time. So even though there are several different fighters in this game, each of those fighters really has 6+ different iterations that he can use. So the replayability is astronomical.
So one last thing I want to touch on before we end, which I forgot to cover earlier, is looking at the gameplay image here. You will notice that there are fighters on the board and some minions. Yes, those are acrylic standees, so you're going to have great table presence. You're going to have some very colorful player pieces, if you will. But if you also are a miniatures person, make sure to tune into the GameFound. We'll have something for you there as well. But with that in mind, Mitch, thanks again for joining us today to talk about Street Fighter V Champion Edition Legends.
Thanks for having me, Scotty. It's been a lot of fun.
All right, folks, that does it for the Blacklist Games Showcase for 2021. Hope you guys had fun. Hope you guys are excited about the new reveals. Also, as a reminder, we've got 48 hours from the premiere of this video to participate in the giveaways. I'll put those back up on the screen right now, but essentially you just have to email us at blggiveaways@outlook.com and make sure the subject line of your email matches each of the giveaways, so you'll have to make multiple emails if you want to participate in multiple giveaways. So from everyone at Blacklist Games, thank you everyone for your continued support, and it's thanks to you guys that we're able to keep making exciting games, and we hope to continue to deliver such exciting games to you for the coming years. So if you have any further questions regarding what you saw here today, just head over to blacklistgamesllc.com, and we'll have links to the various articles and pages pertaining to what you saw today. So until next time, I'm Scotty. Keep playing those Blacklist games.